What if one of the biggest mistakes we make with our horses isn't what we teach? It's what we stop teaching. Horse people are incredibly creative at solving problems, or at least getting rid of them, right? Horse gets buddy sour, stop taking them to the show with other horses. Horse gets pushy with treats, just stop feeding them. Horse grabs a bite of grass here and there, never let them hand graze. Your horse spooks on the trail, just stay in the arena. Sometimes those are smart management solutions, but sometimes we're just playing keep away, removing the opportunity instead of teaching the horse a skill and maybe learning a skill ourselves. So when life eventually brings that opportunity back, because it will, we discover that we never actually solved the problem. We just avoided the problem. The goal of training isn't to make unwanted behaviors impossible. It's to help your horse become the kind of horse and for you to become the kind of human that can make a different choice when the opportunity is still there. The opportunity for poor decisions is always going to happen for humans and for horses. You're always going to forget about those treats in your pocket. The horse in the stall next to you at the horse show is always going to leave. You're always going to need to put your horse on the trailer. So why not educate your horse and yourself about all of these things rather than avoid them? It's not always the easiest road, but in the end, it's going to be the best road to give you and your horse the best chance at a good outcome. Welcome, friends and fellow horse fiends. I'm Anna Fox of Equus Enlightened, and I'm your host. This is the podcast for horse lovers who want more than simply getting their horse to behave. You want to feel confident in the saddle. You want to understand what your horse is trying to tell you. And you want the partnership you imagined when horses first captured your heart. Even if fear, frustration, or years of conflicting advice have made that connection feel harder to find. Here, we explore the science and soul of horsemanship, equine behavior, nervous system regulation, rider psychology, and compassionate training that helps you become a thinking rider who creates a thinking horse. Because you don't need more pressure, more perfection, or another person telling you to just push through. You need the awareness, skills, and confidence to make decisions that feel right for both you and your horse. Whether you're pursuing competition goals, rebuilding your confidence, or simply trying to understand why your horse did that thing they did, we'll explore the research, the real talk, and the small shifts that create more clarity, connection, and joy in and out of the saddle. And if these conversations help you understand your horse or yourself just a little bit better, follow the show and share it with another horse person who might need it. It's one of the simplest ways you can help this community of loving equestrians grow. Now, grab your boots, take a deep breath. What are you waiting for? Come ride with me. Hey guys, so I'm fresh off of my conversation with Ginny Horton, animal communicator, and it got me thinking about just how many modalities are available to us now in the horse world. When I was in college and studying athletic training, we had modalities. You can use heat, you can use ice, you can use electric stim machines, you can use massage. And through the years, we've just evolved into more modality. Now we have massage guns and all kinds of different therapeutic modalities that weren't available when I was in college. And the same is true for the horses. There are so many more training modalities out there and available to us than there were 40 or so years ago. In fact, 40 or so years ago, we weren't even talking about horses or animals in general as being sentient beings, right? It was just they don't have feelings, they can't feel this, they can't feel that, they don't know the difference between friends and not friends. Now we know that those things are not true. And thankfully, training modalities are at least trying to keep up. So when I see people avoiding things because they don't like a behavior that it creates in their horse, I become really curious. I'm like, why are we still doing that? Avoidance is not a training method. I've also learned that it's not a parenting method either. When we teach our horses and our children strong, healthy boundaries, we can actually give them more freedom. We can give them more autonomy because we're confident that they're going to make good decisions. Horses are constantly giving us the opportunities to learn, and they're constantly taking the opportunities from us to learn something. Often, though, I think we miss really great training opportunities because we're so busy trying to make problems disappear or just not happen that we never ask, what do we need to learn from this problem? Instead, we tell our horse, oh, we're going to avoid that. We're going to teach the horse a lesson. If the horse is pushy about treats, I'm just not going to feed them treats. That doesn't teach the horse anything. What I really think is happening is that the human doesn't understand how to teach the healthy boundary that needs to be there. And the human is either reluctant to learn a new skill or they're afraid to learn a new skill. They're embarrassed that they need to learn a new skill. If, as parents, we use that same logic, it would be really hard to raise children. And it is really hard to raise children. You're constantly needing to learn and evolve to keep up with those little cretins. They are smart, and horses are no different. So if you want to keep up with your horse and you want to keep up with their learning curve, you're going to have to keep challenging yourself to learn more. And there is no failure in saying that you need to learn something else or you need help teaching something, help with learning something. That's the first thing. And if you have a coach, riding instructor, trainer, whatever you want to call them, that makes you feel dumb or stupid or silly, embarrassed for not knowing something, rethink that relationship. Because if somebody comes to me with a problem and I don't know how to solve it, I'm going to start asking questions. I'm going to start asking my go-to experts questions. We're going to start figuring out how to solve this problem. We're not just going to hide it. We're not going to, you know, tuck it under the hay pile and hope it doesn't come back up. We're going to tackle it head on and we're all going to learn something. Me, the student, the horse. I want everybody to have that type of learning environment, especially in the horse world, because it can be very hard to find. But now we have so many resources with the internet, and there being a lot of great trainers online, having great communities. You have so much more opportunities, so many more modalities now that you can use to learn about you and your horse. So take advantage of them. When you feel like you need to keep something away from your horse, I want you to ask this question. Am I removing the opportunity because my horse isn't ready yet, or because I don't know how to get them ready? There is absolutely no shame if the answer is, I don't know. That actually gives you a bit of freedom because now you know what needs fixed. You need to learn something so you can pass it on to your horse. Do I actually know how to teach this? Most people are going to know. Like, yes, I've done this before, or no, I haven't done it before. Or maybe, yes, I have done it before, but I'm using the same techniques with this horse that I use with another horse and it's not working. Okay, so you have some experience. You just need to get a new modality. The question isn't, do I know how to stop this behavior? Because anyone can interrupt the behavior, right? If the horse gets mouthy, people bop it on the nose. That interrupts the behavior. But that's a punishment, doesn't teach anything. It doesn't teach any skill, and it doesn't teach the horse a healthy boundary. If you're a little unsure as to whether you know how to teach the skill or the boundary to your horse, think of this. If someone asks you or your professional why their method works or why their training works, could they explain it? Many horse people know techniques because someone showed it to us. But if you can't explain why it works, you probably don't understand it well enough to modify it when you need to. And because every horse is an individual and every human you're teaching is also an individual, you're going to have to modify things a lot. When you think about stopping your horse from doing something, ask yourself the question, am I teaching something here or am I just preventing something from happening? Am I just avoiding a subject? Generally, behavior has four consequences. Reinforcement that increases the behavior, punishment that decreases behavior, extinction, which just removes any reinforcement at all, or you can have differential reinforcement, which teaches another choice. So, can you do this or can you do that? I can give you a treat like this, but not like that. Smacking the horse on on the nose, the smacking the horse on the nose for mouthing you or getting too close to you is a perfect example because normally that's going to stop a horse. So we're going to say that works. But did it work or did it just teach the horse that I get hit near humans? And some of you may say, well, that's fine. Then they won't get too close. True, but I'm probably going to want to put a halter or a bridle on, probably going to need to have some vet visits, probably going to need to be up in that space from time to time. So, how do I teach the horse that it's okay to share a space and yet not be hit and also not get bit? One changes the emotional feel of the situation, and the other changes the skill level. If I hit the horse on the nose, then there's fear there. If I teach the horse that there are other options besides putting their mouth on me, now I've taught them a safe thing and I've given them another option to fulfill whatever need they need. Because punishment only suppresses a behavior temporarily. Education replaces that behavior. And whether it replaces the behavior permanently or not depends on whether there's continuing education or whether we just resort to extinction again and doing nothing. I think one of the most complex issues and comes up a lot is that of horses that are buddy sour. That is natural for horses, right? They belong in a herd, they belong in a group, they feel safe around other horses. There's lots of emotional attachments there for the horse. When they go somewhere with another horse that they're familiar with, or they're a horse who gets really familiar with their neighbor very quickly, they're going to feel safe with that horse. And then when that horse goes away, they may not feel safe. And that's a deeper rooted issue than simply being buddy sour. It can also be something that takes time and lots of reinforcement to teach a horse that they are safe and that you are a sufficient buddy. A lot of times, this is something that people try to train horses out of, right? Like, keep them moving, move their feet. Don't, let them call to another horse. Don't let them do this, don't let them do that. But again, those are all avoiding the issue and not teaching the horse that they're safe with you and that you understand what is happening in their world. This is a really great place that you can make a deeper connection with your horse. It can be a really good teaching and learning time if you give it the space. But most people just want it to be over, right? They just don't want to deal with the behavior at all. So they find a way to avoid it. They either just don't take the horse out or they don't take them with any of the horses they know. If they go to horse shows with friends, they're like, stable me on the other end of the showgrounds. While that may give you a temporary solution, if you and your friend cross paths in the schooling arena, you can start the whole cycle over. Ask yourself questions like, how can I teach my horse that this is an okay situation? And they don't need to be panicked about leaving their friends. Treats is another thing. There are definitely situations where there are horses that you don't want to feed from your hand. I'm not saying every horse you hand feed, but most horses, most of our domestic horses can be okay with it. But for me, it's very much about, are you intentionally feeding these treats? What is your feeling behind feeding the treat? Or are you just stuffing the horse with treats so you hope that they like you? That's not a reason. It needs to be intention. I do give some unintentional treats too, but I've already taught the expectation, right, of boundaries around treats and feeding them intentionally. There's so many things that we could get into, right? Spooking out on the trail, so we just stay in the arena. Or cantering. We do a little bucking, so we just don't canter. Or we have to lunge for 45 minutes before we can do that. The mounting block, or there's always anxiety there, so we're always going to have somebody hold them. Grooming issues. If your horse is bitey or uncomfortable while you're grooming and you're just disciplining them, punishing them, or you just do it anyway. Maybe they have pain or maybe they just don't like that. Can you find something that they like and do that instead? A lot of this is being aware. Of course, I love to talk about awareness and how most of us are not very aware around our horses and in our daily lives. To be fair, it's not just around horses. But having that awareness of what is really causing the underlying problem. And Ginny talked about that last episode. Really get down to what is the crux of the issue. To do that, you often need to find the right teacher. And I talked a little bit in the beginning about how you might know if the teacher you're currently going to is the right one for this problem. This is another place where I think horse people are so weird about having multiple professionals in their lives. When I look at other sports and coming from the athletic training background, even golfers have many coaches, right? Obviously, team sports, they have different position coaches, but they also have nutritionists, specialty coaches, strength training coaches, athletic trainers, physical therapists, orthopedic surgeons. Whereas horse people tend to just have one trainer. Might go to a clinic here and there, but I've got one trainer. And that is putting a lot on us trainers that we should know how to fix every single problem out there. It's really just not possible. So finding the right teacher for your problem. doesn't have to be your forever person. You can be loyal to people and still get education elsewhere because loyalty is not a training strategy. For those of you in the workforce, you know that oftentimes loyalty is not a way to make it further in your jobs either, right? So you don't owe someone continued failures because they're nice and they're supportive. You certainly don't owe them continued failures if they're not. Your riding instructor may be phenomenal. They may be a great rider. They might be a great riding teacher. They may teach fabulous rider biomechanics, but they may not know a whole lot about equine behavior or nervous system regulation for horses or riders. They may not know anything about learning theories. And that is okay. There are plenty of people out there who do. So find the person who teaches the problem you're trying to solve. If the person can explain to you why what they're suggesting to you might work and how it might be modified if it doesn't work, that's a pretty good indication that they understand it. And can they make you understand it? Or do they just expect you to obey? That's a really great litmus test. One of the things that I tell my students all the time is that when you want to take your horse off property or do something different, you can expect 75%, at most 75% of whatever your optimum behavior is at home with no stress. If at home your horse gets stressed when other horses leave the arena, whatever that escalation in behavior is, it's going to be worse when you take them into another stressful environment. So you want to make sure that if you want 100%, if you want perfection at a horse show, you better have 125% at home. Because if you have a teddy bear of a problem at home, it's going to be a grizzly bear of a problem away from home. Life or shows in particular are always out there ready to pop your bubble. Anytime you're creating a bubble, which avoidance is doing, you're creating an avoidance bubble, life is going to try to pop it. If you've kept something away from your horse, you've kept away an experience, and then that experience pops up in a high pressure environment, that is a double bad time because your horse's nervous system and likely your nervous system are not in a place to learn and change behavior. Now we just have horse and human reacting and escalating, and no one is able to come back to the center. There's no learning happening. And that makes your next experience going out even more tricky. Another way to think about it is if you feel like you are just surviving at home, don't take your horse anywhere else. It's not going to be better. Oftentimes, we think that pressure is going to reveal a talent, and it doesn't really. It's a rare human or horse that is actually better in a high pressure situation. Pressure reveals your preparation level. So again, if you want 100%, you got to have 125 at home. When you're avoiding or when you find yourself constantly saying no to your horse or thinking no, ask yourself, are you managing something today so you can educate tomorrow? Or are you managing something because the education feels overwhelming? One is strategic and the other is just avoidance. With all of the training modalities out there today, you don't need to be avoiding. You can be educating. You can educate yourself, makes you safer, makes you a better horseman, horse person, horsewoman, however you want to say it. That will eventually make you a better rider if your focus is riding. Being a better horse person, a better educated horse person is going to help your riding. So, your 10-minute experiment this week is to pick one thing that you have been avoiding. Maybe it's treats, maybe it's the trailer, maybe it's the cross ties. Whatever it is, I want you to do a little research on it. I want you to ask the trainer who you normally work with, the riding instructor, whatever, what their suggestion would be for educating you and your horse. Because we often talk about the horse, the horse, the horse, the horse. But the human needs to have more education than the horse. How does your professional recommend educating you on this issue and then educating your horse on it? And then I want you to do some Dr. Google or something like that. Read a book. Whatever it is, just do a little bit of research. Can you find some other suggestions out there maybe you haven't thought of before and maybe your trainer didn't bring up? Can you find another modality that might help you break through this avoidance problem and teach you and your horse something new? If somebody wants to give me a problem that they're having, one thing they're loving to avoid, I would absolutely give you some suggestions on how you can stop avoiding and start educating. See you next time. All right, horse fiends, thanks for spending time with me today. If this episode got your gears turning, don't let the conversation end here. Come join us inside the Happy Horse and Rider Lab, my free community on school.com, where you can share what you're noticing, ask questions, and connect with other thoughtful horse people. We're going to keep exploring how these ideas apply to you and your horse. If you're ready for more structured support, you can also find the Reconnect, Rebuild, and Ride with Heart inside the school community classroom. Don't worry, the link is in the show notes. I can't wait to see you there.